Exactly 1 minute past 9 o'clock, and you're just right in time for the latest update in the world of business, sports, and of course, politics. And for the next 1 hour, we'll be bringing you up to speed with the latest across the country and beyond our borders. This is the state of the nation, and of course, we have much and more lined up for you. And my goodness, what a week in review! So, the latest to hit the wave line is protest that we saw the commemorating of the June 25th protest, and the country was yet again in another scene of chaotic deaths, and of course, all this in what we'll call what is familiar to us the protest that is so synonymous with chaos and, of course, cases of police brutalities. But protest is not a crime. The right to peaceful assemble is guaranteed under the Article 37 of our Constitution. Even where protest turns chaotic, law enforcement is required to act with restraint, professionalism, and within the bounds of the law. Yet, what we have witnessed in recent months is a disturbing pattern. Live bullets used against crowd, police fist bumping with aggressors, destruction of properties, looting, and deaths of unarmed civilians, and almost zero accountability. Tonight, we reflect on the statement made by Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration, Kipchumba Murkomen, instructing police officers to shoot anyone who attempts to approach a police station. The statement has rubbed Kenyans the wrong shoulders. While such statement may be a win, or rather within or win him points with handlers who view protest as an inconvenience. The question, however, is this a betrayal of the Constitution, a threat to public safety, and a green light for impunity coming at a time when public trust in the National Police Service is an all-time low? So tonight we'll be reflecting on that fundamental question, even as we take a look at what has transpired last week and the aftermath of the protest. Remember, we have destruction, we witnessed destruction, loss of lives, and of course, what has become um, the norm, the looting, perpetrators by the rogue. We'll call them demonstrators, but by equal measures, protest is enshrined in our constitution, and there is guideline that protects and, of course, lay down the procedure and the framework under which such demonstration shall be carried out. And we'll be having that discussion in our State of the Nation later on with my guest, Professor David Minja, governance and public policy expert. But first thing first, our top stories tonight. Tonight, 11 days still missing. Where is he? Court orders DCI to produce missing blogger Kiangui Kinyagia, dead or alive. We will fight for you. Opposition leaders condoles with Boniface Mwangi's family, vows to fight for the victims of police brutality. Also tonight, from Democratic to Patriotic Front, Wiper Democratic Movement Party announces plans to change its names ahead of 2027 polls. Plus, tying loose ends. Neck rollout examiners training ahead of Kenya Junior Secondary School exams.
This is KUTV Primetime News with Auma Evans.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Check. All right. So tonight, I'm in able and safe hands of our ever competent Naomi Omboy as our sign language interpreter tonight. Maybe you can follow this broadcast on all of our social media platforms. We are coming to you live on YouTube at KUTV Kenya News. You can tweet us on X at KUTV_Kenya. Remember the hashtag to use, State of the Nation. So tonight we begin our bulletin in the corridors of justice, where the Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja and Director of Criminal Investigation Amin Mohammed were a no-show. The two were summoned to appear before the Milimani Law Court to answer questions concerning blogger Diangui Kinyangia whereabouts. In his ruling today, Justice Chacha Mwita ordered DCI boss to appear before a court of law on July 3rd to shed light on the whereabouts of the missing blogger Diangui Kinyangia.
The Milimani Law Court was today filled with drama and anger as the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI boss Mohammed Amin, failed to appear before the court for hearing as expected. Senior Counsel Martha Karua condemned this behavior, strongly accusing them of openly defying court orders.
Law enforcers cannot become lawbreakers and fail to comply with court orders.
Additionally, Karua accused the DCI for producing fake report concerning the number of items that were taken from Diangui's house, stating that they were interfered with and did not match with the petitioner's report.
Unlike theirs.
I'm on the respondents.
Oh, we finished with the respondents. I've now started with ours.
So I'm confirming that I got you right.
Yeah, the differences are
21st,
ST and 25 written in pen instead of typing.
then the items are
Are 6.
the witness, Jane.
Jane Jango.
Defending the DCI, lawyer Willie Sotito Golo asked the court to dismiss the petition, arguing that Ndiangui has not been arrested or detained by state agents.
I have seen that the respondents recognize that we are in a country operating under the rule of law. And if they accept that fact, then a competent court having made an order, I've never seen orders that are so express and explicit like this one.
Embakasi East Member of Parliament Babu Owino accused the state of linking suspects to an account without evidence of ownership.
Of any person is withheld from the person entitled thereto.
As the social media blogger Ndiangui whereabouts remains unknown, Justice Chacha Mwita has ordered the DCI officers who were in Ndiangui's house before he disappeared to provide an explanation on his whereabouts.
All right, Stillwater's abduction. Now, the Democratic Congress Party, or if you prefer the acronym DCP, Kiambu County Youth Leader Peter Kinyanjui was allegedly abducted together with his wife by unknown individuals in Nairobi last night. Eyewitnesses claim he was taken by armed men in civilian clothing. His whereabouts remains unknown, raising concerns among party members and human rights groups. The DCP has condemned the act, demanding immediate action from security agencies to locate and safely return their youth leader. As Kinyanjui abduction remains in question, Mark Amiani, John Mulingwa Nzau, and Francis Mutunge Mwangi are among the youths who are still missing in action.
We have lost a lot of our youth. And this is now heading to the wrong direction.
Right, now let's switch gears to matters politics. Opposition leaders have condemned the killings of, or rather the killing of Boniface Mwangi Karaoke, who was shot by police officer during protests, demanding justice for slain teacher and blogger Albert Ojwang. The party leader, or rather the Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and his DAP-K counterparts Eugene Wamalwa vowed to fight for Boniface Mwangi's family and other victims of police brutality. The story was produced by our very own Yamat Yohan.
A day after Boniface Kariuki, a masked vendor who was shot by police, was announced dead, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and his Democratic Action Party DAP Kenya counterpart Eugene Wamalwa have come out expressing their anger over the rising incidents of extrajudicial killings, blaming the government for turning a blind eye to security officers' brutality.
Kwamba kifo cha Kariuki kama vile kifo cha Albert Ojwang wakati ule na wale wengine ambao wanauawa kiolela na serikali ya Ruto, sisi tunasimama na familia.
Kalonzo condemned the use of live bullets against unarmed protesters and promised that a committee headed by Justin Muturi, alongside other lawyers that they formed, will ensure that dignity is restored to the victims. Wamalwa, on his part, blamed the government's silence on the contentious matter and pledged to continue pushing for justice in parliament, supported by Kalonzo Musyoka and lawyer Ndegwa. This is even as they called for the resignation of Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen. As the leaders continue to support Boniface Kariuki's family, the nation watches to see whether justice will be served or if his name will be merely added to the long list of police brutality victims.
Meanwhile, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has continued with his onslaught against the government, this time slamming Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen for accusing people from Mount Kenya region of looting businesses during the June 25th protest. As KUTV's Patricia Alex details in the following report, Gachagua challenged the state to arrest him if they have evidence that he funded protest as it's alleged. Patricia reports.
Speaking during the burial of Kiburu member of County Assembly Beth Joroge, Rigathi Gachagua strongly refurbed allegations made by the government allies that people from the Mount Kenya region were involved in looting businesses during the 2025 June protest.
Huyu Murkomen alisema ati watu wale walikuja kuchoma Nairobi walitoka Murang'a, walitoka Kirinyaga, ani Nyeri. Kwani watu wetu wako na alama kwa uso ati yakiwaona najua ni watu ya Nyandarua.
Gachagua also rubbished the claims that the thieves involved in looting were the ones who left their national identification cards at the very place they committed the crime.
Anaenda anaokota vitambulisho 30. Hata watu wakienda kuiba, kuna mtu anaweza wacha kitambulisho yake. Tena vitambulisho 30 na yote ni mpya. Na yote ni watoto wetu ya hapa mlima.
Gachagua further criticized President William Ruto, accusing him of trying to sabotage the Mount Kenya region politically. He challenged the government to provide clear reasons and evidence if there was any intention to arrest him. He declared his commitment to mobilizing millions from the Mount Kenya community to ensure that Ruto will not be re-elected.
I'll mobilize 8 million people from this community to send you home.
The Directorate of Criminal Investigation boss Mohamed Amin clarified that Gachagua is currently not a person of interest in relation to protest goons, but if investigations shall link him to the crimes as a person of interest, then he shall be arrested immediately. Patricia Alex, for KUTV.
All right, thank you, Patricia Alex, for that comprehensive reporting. Meanwhile, police in Ruiru County have recovered various goods looted from a store during last Wednesday's protest. Officers recovered items including mattresses, TV screens, and gas cylinders, among other goods which were found in Masaku area of Ruiru town. Kiambu County Police Commander Doris Kemei stated that the stolen items from Quickmart supermarket were recovered or rather discovered in the shop of a local trader, Geoffrey Bugwa, who has been since arrested. The police commander also confirmed that 154 suspects have been apprehended in connection with the looting and destruction of properties in Kiambu County during the nationwide protest commemorating the first anniversary of the June 25th, 2024 Gen Z killings by the police officers.
today because we've been able to arrest one Geoffrey Mbuga from Masako area within Arwiru. And we've been able to recover certain items that we believe were looted during that day. Mattresses from Quickmart. We also have gas cylinders. We have bicycles, the small ones. We also have fluorescent tubes that we believe were taken from various shops, electronic shops. We also have TV screens. And apart from that, we've come to realize he's also a serial offender. And because we've been able to recover other things, he is also involved in adulterated alcohol. He's been producing a fake alcohol. We've been able to get KRA stickers, which is very illegal.
Right. Meanwhile, Wiper Democratic Movement Party is planning to rebrand its name to Wiper Patriotic Front ahead of the 2027 polls. The rebrand reflects the party's evolving strategy ahead of the 2027 general elections, focusing on youth voter registration. Founded in 2006 as ODM Kenya after 2005 referendum, the party adopted its current name in 2011 to distinguish itself from Raila Odinga's UDM, or rather ODM. Under Kalonzo Musyoka's leadership, the transformational signals renewed energy and purpose as the party positioned itself for political future. All right, let me take you to Spain. President William Ruto has reaffirmed Kenya's commitment to deepening its historic diplomatic relationship with France and the United Kingdom in a trade and defense. This follows high-level talks with French President Emmanuel Macron and United Kingdom Prime Minister Starmer Kerr in Seville in Spain, as Vincent Caroli now tells us the following report.
In a meeting co-chaired by President William Ruto and France President Emmanuel Macron in Seville, Spain, President William Ruto emphasized that France remains one of the Kenya's closest allies, with relations rooted in decades of cooperation. Their bilateral dialogue focused on expanding mutual interest and fostering collaborations in areas such as trade, finance, climate action, and global governance reforms.
The international arena cannot solve this problem alone. We have to be realistic. There are things that must be done in domestic jurisdictions. There are things we must do in our countries. And I will explain. For example, a matter that was ably canvassed by President Lorenzo about health. It is true. There is a relationship between poverty.
President William Ruto went further, popularizing the global agreement on efforts to make the world prosperous and protect the planet from the effects of climate change. He maintained that the efforts are not a contest between the developed and developing nations, neither is the reform of the international financial architecture a North versus South issue.
This forum spoke about the need to reform the international financial architecture. It is no longer. When we raised it initially, we looked like madmen. But today, everybody agrees that there is something that needs to be done about the international global architecture. And Ajay Banka here already has enumerated to us what steps are being taken to address the concerns that have been put forward by this forum that is jointly between people from different shades of opinion. Secondly, let me say,
France President Emmanuel Macron, on his part, expressed strong support for Kenya's role in driving multilateral reform, particularly in advocating for a fairer and more inclusive international financial system.
Your narrative was based on a big divide between North and South. This is the exact opposite of what I do believe in. Because I think it's feasible to make hand in hand together a common agenda. But as long as You will have people in Europe and North America saying, these people in the South are my main problem. I don't want them. They are just migrants. Or people from the South saying, in the North, you have my main problem. This is cynicism. Wealthy people.
In a separate meeting at the 10 Downing Street in London in the United Kingdom, Kenya and the UK renewed their strategic partnership, focusing on trade, ICT and security. This follows a Tuesday meeting between President William Ruto and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, where they agreed on boosting green growth, supporting startups and advancing the Nairobi Railway City project. The pact between UK and Spain aims to double trade and strengthen defense ties. Vincent Caroli, KUTV.
All right, 23 minutes down. Time to take a very fast break here on the State of the Nation. When we come back, it's all about matters, the State of the Nation. What a week in review, from protests to killings and, of course, enactment of laws that probably will tame the looting and, of course, destruction of properties. Those are some of the conversation that we'll be having on our State of the Nation, the conversation that we'll be having with Professor David Minja, governance and public policy expert. That conversation will be coming to you in just a while. Until then, let's have this very short break.
Miti, panda. Our planet's future is in our hands. However, there is a threat to the brightness of this tomorrow. On Earthcheck, we share the challenges, the solutions, and the hope.
I would call this a very momentous day, a very critical day.
Every episode, every story, every step we take creates a ripple. Join me, the environmentalist Emmanuel Kutosi, on KUTV every Wednesday at 8 p.m. and be part of Welcome.
Jina langu naitwa Okemwa Mkwa James.
This is Mandela Gaya.
Ugonjwa ulipokuja ulichukua siku 3 ukaniweka in coma. 20 wamezikwa, 2 ndio wako hai.
I don't even know how it feels to see.
I feel like I cannot express myself well the way somebody who can walk can actually express themselves.
Ilichukua muda mwingi mrefu tena mpana ili kuikubali kwamba mimi siwezi tembea tena.
I've come to actually accept myself.
Ukijaribu kumsimamisha mtu umwambie tafadhali nionyeshe njia,
They find it quite strange talking to you.
We should just make schools integrated,
Inclusive setups.
by providing the right facilities.
My name is Kutv. I'm associate professor in the Institute of Philosophy of Indiana University in Krakow, Poland. I'm the main coordinator of the Capital project, which is being here hosted by Kenyatta University.
Project manager in this consortium.
Keep watching Cutting Edge Research at Kenyatta University Television.
Maelfu na maelfu ya wahamiaji wakiwa na watoto kutoka nchi za Amerika ya Kati wanaendelea kuwasili kwenye mpaka kati ya Marekani na Mexico. Folks, thank you very, very much.
Habari kutoka pembe zote duniani.
Jeshi la Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo linapambana na uasi wa ADF.
Kwa sasa wanatoa wito kwa mashirika, makampuni na vilevile vituo vya uchukuzi.
Hapa ni kwa mmoja wa viongozi wa chama cha eneo. Zaidi tunajaribu kuwapa chanjo ili ina boost ama inanunua kinga ya mwili ndio inaweza kupelekea
Baada ya kutafuta kazi, tunaweza kuanzisha miradi yetu ambayo ingetusaidia kubadilisha maisha ya wazazi wetu.
Kwa vijana wenzangu wengi waliofanya kazi, lakini ikiwa sisi wenyewe tutajiamini, tunaweza kujiajiri wenyewe.
Afrika kwa kweli tuna mahitaji ambayo ukiyasuluhisha unaweza kuathiri watu kwenye bara hili
bila uoga. Watu huwa na uzalishaji zaidi, wanajawa na ujasiri, wanakuwa wabunifu na wanakuwa wenye maarifa.
Niliamua kuacha kazi, hata kama sitafanikiwa, nitakuwa nimejaribu, nitakuwa najua haiwezekani.
Hakuna kitu cha ajabu hapa. Kila anayepata ufanisi hufanya kazi usiku na mchana.
Kitu kitakusukuma na kuwezesha kupata maarifa ambayo hukuwa nayo.
Tunajaribu kutengeneza kitu kitakachopita mipaka ya nchi hii.
Ikiwa unataka kubadilisha ulimwengu, anza na nyumbani.
Fashion. It's more than just clothes. It's a statement, a feeling. An art form, a way to express yourself, a reflection of who you are. It's Fashion Diaries. Join me, Ashley Asachi, every Monday from 8 p.m. as we bring you Kenya's latest trends. Imagine fashion designers, glamorous fashion events, animations, red carpet events, and so much more. Fashion Diaries, unleashing your inner fashionista.
Shama mikono kisha kichwa tupo bona nyinyi na baba shanki kula nyama choma tu firi firi na ngimi yo hata show I'm taking time tell them twerking so kill them bust burning I'm too impressed with a lovely dress.
My name is Kutv. I'm associate professor in the Institute of Philosophy of Educative University in Krakow, Poland. And I'm the main coordinator of the Capital Project, which is being here hosted by Kenyatta University.
project manager in this consortium. Keep watching Cutting Edge Research at Kenyatta University Television.
You are watching KUTV Primetime News with Auma Evans. Right, welcome back and thank you for keeping it state of the nation. So that discussion, or rather the conversation about the state of the nation begins right away. And of course, my guest tonight is Professor David Minja, governance and public policy expert. Prof, asante sana for making time. Right. So, Prof, it has been a week in review. A lot has happened from the protest that was meant to remember the young people, the Gen Zs that were killed in the 2024 protest, the June 25th protest. With it came more deaths. As we speak right now, we have cases of abduction, and this raises a lot of questions and, of course, concerns among the young people who went to the street to demonstrate, demanding for better governance, accountability, and end to police brutality. And 1 year down the line, the story is just pretty much the same. From your point of view, how would you describe the state of the nation today?
Thank you and good evening. From where I stand, I see the nation is still bleeding. I see citizens who are not resonating with the leaders. Perhaps even to say that leaders are seen to be insensitive to the needs and the desires and the aspirations of the citizens. And of course, citizens being enlightened people, and they know their rights, they have read the Constitution or it has been read for them. So at least they have some basic understanding of how good governance looks like. And they have very high expectations from the leadership that they actually need to see leaders who are concerned about the welfare of the citizens. So from my viewpoint, since last year, I don't think anything has changed. The Gen Z still feel that as it was last year, it is still now. And so we need to see more change, and especially the response that we see from leadership is what actually carries the day. That's what matters. Yes.
Prof, when you look at the arrogant nature and of course the lack of humility from the leaders, when the young people go out on the streets to demonstrate on what they'll call an end to police brutality, accountability, and to corruption, instead what they get is a very, I will call it a very proud some sort of leaders who goes out there and even label the protest themselves as, an act of terror. As a young person out on the streets who demonstrates with the hope that the government at the end of the day will listen to their plea. And when you get such response, does it actually, set now, it's actually fuel the anger, the agitation from the young people to even demand for more accountability given this? Don't you think probably leaders should have a heart of sympathy, a listening ear, and of course, a voice of reason when it comes to matters such as delicate as this?
The Constitution is very clear. Article 73 talks about accountability for action, that state officers or servants should actually be accountable for their decisions and actions. And that is put very clearly it is expressed in the Constitution. So when the Gen Zs see leaders who are not responsive to their pleas, of course, they read arrogance and the insensitivity, and that should actually ought not to be the case. This government was put in by people. We voted in the government. So it is, and of course, we are a democratic state, the government of the people, to serve the people. And so when the citizens reach the level of perceiving that the leaders they elected and they put into offices are not sensitive to their pleas and needs, then there is a disconnect between what the leaders see from their perspective and the citizens' perspectives. They will see arrogance, they will read insensitivity and pride just because of the way they talk. Remember, I've talked about accountability for your actions and for your decisions, even the words that the leaders put across. They will either bring harmony or fuel further the discontentment and the acrimony that exists between the Gen Zs, the government, even the citizens who are not going to the streets. It's not that perhaps they're very comfortable with the way the government is run. It's only that perhaps they feel they don't have the strength to run or engage the police, but they are also discontented. It is something to do with a government that citizens are not seeing as that legitimate. And when you talk about legitimacy, it has nothing to do with the government having been put in office in a legal way. Because a government can be there legally, but because of their actions and decisions, they become illegitimate. Legitimacy comes through the acceptability. People accepting the government as their government, owning that government and feeling we are part of this because this is us. And this animal called government is actually working on our behalf. They are our servants. That's what we are lacking. People who will steward the nation towards the fulfilling the needs and the aspirations of the citizens and helping the citizens to actually also meet their aspirations. Yes.
And when you look at when you talk about the accountability part of it, it calls for leaders who can actually live up to their words. And on September 2022, when President William Ruto took the mantles of power, he promised a lot of things: an end to police brutality. And he was quoted actually saying that part of the reason why he sacked the former DCI boss George Kinoti was because of these extrajudicial killings without actual accountability. Bodies being dumped in the River Yala, and for that, Kenya needed a change. And many thought that this will be now the beginning of a new hope where Kenya will be governed by the rule of law. 1 year down the line, a lot has changed. We've seen more bodies, abductions. The number of those who have been killed is just quite a lot. And of course, the figure keeps on rising. And who knows about tomorrow? And because of that, I think, was it now about time for the young people now to rise up to the occasion and remind the leadership that, yes, you promised this, it's time to live up to that. And when government is confronted with, a fact, a call for accountability, and just a reminder of what you promise and act on it, does it agitate the government? And why is it so hard for those holding the instrument of power to actually live up to the expectations of Kenyans, the people that they promise to better their lives when they take the mantle of power? Why is it so difficult?
I think that's where the challenge is. And perhaps it has to do with the character of the people. We are talking about values. Article 10 talks about values, national values. Chapter 6, Article 73 talks about values again. Many of them, integrity, accountability, and all this. Until the time leaders choose to walk the talk, we will not see any change. Leaders must get to the point where they will say, yes, we have made mistakes. Accountability has to do with also accepting where you have made mistakes and saying from now on, watch this space. I am going to change and change positively. Why I'm saying this is because this government belongs to the people, was put in office by the people. So why don't we see then leaders who will say, we agree. The young people have a point or points. Old people have a point. We have not lived up to the promises that we gave. Therefore, meaning we have not been accountable. Because accountability has to do with an obligation to report to people in light of what you promised to give or to do. And that has not happened. Accountability has nothing to do with just reading a report. That's not accountability. It is actually telling the people that you put me in office, I promise to do X, Y, Z. Done X and Y. Z is yet to be done. But I have put mechanisms in place also to meet and fulfill that promise. So, from a governance point of view, I actually don't see what is difficult in actually doing what you promised people to do. And if leaders just honored their word, because that's the problem. We don't honor our word. We can't actually, our word is not our bond. We are different. Our words are different from who we are. So when you have this double personality, that's where the problem is. But let me say this. As much as we are seeing now all this back and forth, the people who are dying, those who are being kidnapped, do you know there's still time for the government to redeem itself? If it wanted to. Leaders still have a chance to redeem themselves and come back to the citizen and say, yes, we hear you. You remember there's a day that the president said we have had the Gen Zs. You remember there was an evening press conference. And he said, we have heard what they have said and we are going to do something. So I believe if he actually followed through and said, like his words were, we have heard you, we are going to do something. Even now, it is not late. The government still has time, 2 or so years, to redeem itself by way of saying, this is where we have come from. We know we have not fulfilled our promises, but take our word from now. We are going to see change. And if it's a leader who is not willing to support the government, they should be put aside and others perhaps put in place to support the government to fulfill its promises.
And that's the problem, Prof. Because when it was last year, June still, when the Gen Z protesters actually stormed the parliament and we saw what happened, the shootings, then it was a moment of reflection, calling ourselves the inner self. Now, as a nation, we needed change. President William Ruto promised a draft of measures, and with that came even the 10-point agenda from the UDA and of course ODM. Part of it, number 6 of the agenda, was now compensation of victims of police brutality and of course the right to assemble. 1 year down the line, nothing has changed. President William Ruto promised to reduce the number of advisors. We're talking about austerity measures, but instead the number has shot. And for young people, they feel like probably, maybe, the government is taking us for a ride. Then how is it possible for them now to trust anything that will be said by the government, given the fact that there's a government that, according to them, they see like it's a government that is standing on their own words? Now, the level of trust is what we are talking about here. Because the trust seems to have faded away from the government. It's hard for young people to trust the government institutions. You see, you saw what happened between the contradictory statement issued by the DCI about the death of Albert Ojwang. That just adds the number of inconsistency and lack of keeping their words on the promises they make to Kenyans. So how will young people, especially the Gen Z, trust the government that they can actually change things around?
One, they will not trust anybody just because they have said, trust me. Trust is earned. Trust is like a deposit in a savings account in a bank. You keep depositing. So for trust, you the leaders. Let me not talk about this government because people ask who is the government, and we are the government. Let me say leaders. They must purposefully start depositing in a bank called trust. And they will not earn trust by telling people we will do. We promise this will happen. People or citizens must see leaders do things differently and in a positive way. When I say differently, must be positive. Working in the interest of the citizens. If they're serving the people that put them in those offices, trust will start building. They will start depositing into that account called trust. But even at individual level, I can't just trust you because you have told me, trust me, I'll do this. No, I'll wait until you do it, and then my trust levels will start rising. But they don't just come from nowhere. It's not just by word alone. And I think, of course, why the nation feels disillusioned is because they actually trusted only the words, especially during campaigns. Yeah. So the words were nice and everybody felt there was to be hope, but those were just words. Trust has little to do with just with words. It has everything to do with actions. That is why I'm saying, even for this government, there is still room to reverse the trend we are seeing now. What they promised to change, if they start changing, because the young people just want to see change that is positive for everybody and for the nation. So if they start addressing, and they may not address everything because I think they have messed too bad, but if they start somewhere and say, we may not clear everything, we may not change everything positively, but we will start somewhere and we will end up somewhere. So I still believe, and this is my conviction, that if leadership decides to change for the good, all this acrimony will be reduced, at least significantly. Walking the talk. That's what we are looking.
All right. And now to another very controversial matter that really has elicited a lot of reaction among Kenyans. In fact, Kenyans are raging with the statement issued by the Interior Cabinet Secretary for National and Coordination, Kipchumba Murkomen, on Thursday, after the aftermath of Gen Z protest that led to destruction of properties, lives were lost, a lot of lootings were witnessed, and he was recorded giving orders to police officers to shoot anyone who, probably according to the interpretation of the statement, anyone who might try to approach a police station. First of all, Prof, from your understanding of, how to deal with criminals, does the law give instance where you can actually shoot? Is there other ways of dealing with the rogue, let's say the rogue public offenders? Is there any law that actually clearly indicates the circumstances under which you can shoot to kill? Or what does the law say about this?
Yeah, the law is clear. The law is clear in the sense that, first of all, if an officer or if officers meet people who are violent, they are armed, they cannot, of course, tell them, please, let's go to the police station. Because even them officers may not reach that police station. However, we have to interrogate and ask ourselves, these people that you have used excessive force, were they armed? Were they dangerous? Were the lives of the police at risk? If you look at those factors, then some bit of force can be applied. If the lives of even these officers are in danger. But people who are unarmed, like there was an instance when they had just a phone and a bottle of water. At that point, you could not have said that perhaps that they were danger to the police force. Yeah. So you have to evaluate it very logically and ask yourself whether do these people come with a force that can also endanger the lives of the officers. So if they come with such a force, then they have to be met with a force. But if they are peaceful demonstrators, the law, the constitution allows them to picket, to demonstrate, to speak their mind so that they heard. And do you know why people will demonstrate or picket? Because they're not being heard. So you see, you will blame, as much as you will blame these people, you'll ask yourself, have we listened to their concerns? Because I highly doubt if citizens will wake up one day and say, let's demonstrate, let's picket, let's shout, let's do this, if the government is doing the right thing. Yeah. So that balance is very important. There is the bit that you could use force, but then reasonable force, and not just killing indiscriminately. That's not allowed by the Constitution. It's very sad when citizens cannot trust their security machinery. When the security machinery is seen as the enemies of the people, then that nation is in trouble. So when the minister or the officer in charge of the security forces or the police issues a statement that is reckless, that's dangerous. And therefore, you'd want a situation where we as citizens trust the police force or the security forces, and also the one in charge is not reckless with words. The challenge with words is that once the words are come out, you cannot retract them. Even if you try to sugarcoat or twist, people heard it the first time. So leaders have also a responsibility of not running in the mouth, weighing the words, before they can speak. That way, so that as a leader, when you start to speak, people want to listen because you're going to say something beneficial or something useful to the public. But if you're the type that runs in the mouth, nobody, even when you have some good things to say, nobody will listen to you. So, of course, that was wrong in the first instance for you to issue those orders. If it were me, I may have issued those orders, but not in public. That when we go, this you plan. Matters security is strategy. It's about its strategy. So plan, strategize, and say if it happens this way, this is how we are going to respond. And that one is done in the strategy room, not in the press. Well, I guess again our leaders have a lot to learn. Yes.
All right. And because we have actually run out of time, I'm afraid that is where we'll have to leave it at this particular point today. Many thanks for making time to shed some light into this very important discussion that touches the core and, of course, the fabric of what makes us as a society, a conversation that touches on the Kenyans, the citizens, that concerns every individual's part as governance. And of course, it has been always a pleasure having you, Prof. And that is Professor David Minja, governance and public policy expert. Asante sana for making time, Prof.
Welcome.
Right. So that is where we'll have to wind up at this particular point. Many thanks for this very comprehensive discussion about the state of the nation. It has been a week in review. Matters, protest. What happened just a couple of days ago, the June 25th, we saw the looting, killings, and of course, a lot of atrocities were committed on that day. It is a day to remember those who were killed by police officers on June 25th, 2024, 1 year down the line. But instead, that is what the nation had to, at the end of the day, come to reality with more deaths and, of course, cases of abductions. Even as we speak, questions are still being asked about some Kenyans who are still missing, and will they ever get justice? Of course, the road to justice has been quite a long one, and the drawn out of nature of proceedings is something that has really worried a lot of Kenyans. And of course, for the families who are still waiting for closure, they continue to wait for that justice. And with that, we leave it at this particular point. Many thanks for men and women who made this broadcast a success, and of course for you, our viewers, for always keeping us a company in the last 1 hour or rather some 50 minutes also. My good name is Auma. Until next time, do have a lovely night and God bless you.